All right, so we're finishing up, you can see on your screen here, MCC7RP3. We've done most of the other stuff in this unit. Not a lot with scale, we'll come back to that. But we're going to be doing proportional relationships using multi-step ratio and percent problems. We didn't really do that before the break. We were supposed to, we ran out of time. So this is sort of what we're doing. And basically what this is basically just using percents. And we're going to be talking about them in ratio form a lot. But this one is, it gives some examples. So it says we're going to do some simple interest, tax and markups, markdowns, gratuities, that's like tips, commissions, fees, all that stuff. This is very applicable stuff. That means you're going to use it in your life, which is pretty cool. Anytime we do stuff that you can use today, that's always good. And I don't know how much this will hit. These are just examples of things we can do. Today we're going to focus on this one here, simple interest. Simple interest is something that I don't know how often it's actually used. It's easier to compute than compound interest. I don't know if it's used a whole lot though. It's a good place to start because it's easier, and then eventually when you learn about compound interest, it'll make more sense hopefully. But that will not be this year. We don't do that until much later. So let's just get on it. Here's an example problem. Ryan deposited $2,000 in a savings account at the interest rate of 4% per year. How much simple interest will he earn in 5 years? So here's Ryan. He has $2,000. He puts that in his account. He's going to get 4% every year for 5 years. And just in case you don't know, there are some important keywords that we need to sort of know from this. So let's go over what those words are very quickly here. The first one, let's change our font so you can actually see it. The first one is principal. Now let's see. Okay, now you can't see it, but now you can. Okay, principal. So, just in case you've never heard that term, what principal is in simple terms, the amount that you start with. And that is not very grammatically correct, but it's hopefully easy to see and understand. The amount that you start with. So his principal is $2,000. So let's go ahead and write that down since we're on that topic. We'll use red here. His principal in this particular problem is $2,000. That's important. We'll come back to that. Let's keep going. Then you have the interest rate. And you guys probably don't do a lot of banking at your age, but what an interest rate is it's something anytime you borrow money, you have to pay interest because they don't let you have it for free. So if I go to a store and I can't afford to pay for something, I put it on a credit card. The credit card company pays for it, but they're going to charge me for that. And that money is called interest. So like every year, every month, I have to pay a little bit extra. So if something costs $100, I'm going to end up paying much more than $100 because of interest. I may pay $150 or so, depending on how long it takes me to do it. It works the other way too. If you put money in the bank, like a savings account, the bank pays you interest. The bank pays interest because they have your money, and they're going to take that money and give it to someone else. So they give you a little bit of money for you to give them your money for a short amount of time. That's what savings is. Now, you don't get as much for that as you would give to a credit card company, of course, but they do give you a little bit. So the interest is the amount. Well, let's make it a percent. We're going to the percent because it's written as a percent in this problem. That's what you're usually see it. That is. We're going to say added each month to the principal. That's probably, once again, this is a very simplified probably explanation of what an interest rate is, but it's the amount that's added, the percent that's added each month to the principal. And in this case, it's a 4%. So let's go ahead and write down 4% there. I can find my writing tool. So in this problem, it's a 4% interest rate. And it tells us right there. Now we know, let's go ahead and do this so that it makes more sense later. We know that when we deal with percents, we usually don't keep them as percents, because to do things with percents, we need to write them as either decimals or fractions, and that's how we do the operation. So usually the easiest way to do this is as a decimal, remembering that the decimal right now is here, and we move it over 1, 2 spaces, which means we have to add a 0 placeholder. So 0.04 is the same thing. So when we actually do the calculation, we're going to use 0.04 instead of 4%. Let's keep going. And then this one's kind of something you already know, but let's go ahead and... The other thing that's important is the time. As I was looking back over this, I put each month here, but it actually could be any time period. I think it's easier just to put one thing, but and I know there was a little interruption. I had to go do something else for a second, but I put month. Could be years, days, anything. We'll leave it a month since I put that. I don't really have to change it, but month. It could be any time period. So let's talk about the other word that we want to put here. Let's see. Let's copy this and bring it down. The other thing we're looking for is time. The amount of time that the principal is borrowed or in the bank or whatever, just like that. And so that's the last sort of part that you need to make sure you know in order to do this. So in this case, our time period is, you can see 5 years, and it said that in the problem as well. So 5-year time period. So we're dealing with 5 years. So the formula for doing this is basically what we need to do is you know to find percent of a number. Percent of means to multiply. So to find 4% of 2,000, you would do 2,000 times 0.04. So the first part of our formula, and this is for interest, I'm going to put I, and that's I is interest. Interest is, the first thing we got to do is we got to take our principal, P for principal. Let me find the highlighter here. I think there's a highlighter somewhere. I don't see it. 1 second. Yeah, here it is. So I'm going to do interest in yellow. So interest, oh, apparently that doesn't work. Sorry. I'll just keep underlining. Hopefully you guys can keep up. So interest is I equals the principal. And the first thing we got to do is multiply it by the interest per month, the interest rate. That should maybe be interest rate. So to find our total interest, we're going to multiply the principal times the monthly interest, or the yearly interest in this case. But that just gives us the interest for one, let's see, this problem's years, so for 1 year. But in this problem, we're dealing with 5 years. So we don't want to find just 1 year. That's the interest for 1 year. We need to do one other thing to find the interest for 5 years. We need to take all this and multiply it by the time, by t. So all we do is we take our principal, the amount we started with, multiply it by the yearly interest, and then multiply that by the amount of time that we're doing this. So filling in our numbers, it looks like this. We take our interest, total interest, we take our principal of $2,000. We're going to multiply that by our interest per year. We have an interest rate of 4%, 0.04. And then we're going to multiply that by the number of years, 5 years. And when you've done that, you should have your total interest. So 2,000 times 0.04. You work that out, you should get 0, 0, 0. 4 times 2 is 8. You don't need to do anything with that 0 other than count it here. 1, 2. So we have $80 per year. And how many years? Well, 5 years. So we're going to multiply. We did these two. Now we're going to multiply by 5. $80 times 5. You know, we'll just go ahead and do this. 5 times 8 is 40. And bring our decimal over 2 spaces. So $400. So the total interest is $400. Let's look at what the problem says again. How much simple interest will he earn in 5 years? So we are done at this point. He earns $400. Now some problems will say things like how much money's in the bank at this point. Well, that's not much more difficult than what we've done. If you started with a principal of 200, you earn 400 in interest. Well, you would just take your I said 200, I meant $2,000, and you've earned 400. So we're going to just add the 400 to that, and you get $2,400 total. And that's how you do simple interest. Since we're going to be using some Google Chromebooks and stuff, let me show you something. Now, this won't help you with the milestones test, but it will help you with life, because in life you're going to use computers for things like this. In college you're going to do statistics on computers. This isn't necessarily statistics, but you'll do percentages on computers as well. So you'll do a lot of this stuff. So if you pull up a Google Doc, and this is the same as it works the same as Excel in this respect, and principal, we're going to put our principal here. All I'm doing is putting labels in. Then the other thing was interest. I'm putting them in bold here. And then we needed to know our time. Oh, sorry. Now, and then we're going to put our total here, but we'll do that in just a second. So what I'm going to do is go back to my problem here and just fill in this information, because these are the three things I need to know. The principal is $2,000, so $2,000. The time, the interest was 0.04%, and the time was 5 years, and that came from the problem I just did. Now I'm going to find the total interest. So one of the cool things this can do is it can compute all this stuff for you. Now for this problem, one problem, it's harder, but let me show you why you would want to do this maybe if you were doing a lot of problems. I'm going to put, first thing you got to put to write a formula is equals. So I'll put equals, and that tells that I'm going to do a formula. And now what I'm going to do, I don't want to do that, is I'm going to click the first spot. Let's look back at our formula really fast. Principal times interest times time. So all I'm doing is multiplying these three numbers together. So let me go back to my Google Doc. So I need to multiply this number times this times this. So what I'm going to do is put in a times sign. And the times sign, if you look at the 8 key, there's a little asterisk. That is time. So I'm going to hit shift and that. You see what it looks like there. That's on your keyboard right at the 8. You hit shift to get it. So I'm going to multiply that times this. Let's put times again. And it does the work for me. It figures out the interest. Just like that. Now, in one problem, that probably takes longer than it's worth. You could just do that yourself. But let's say you have a lot of problems. You could set this up. Once I've set up this formula, it works for any problem. So let me go to another problem here. Let me find one here. All right. Garcia borrowed $4,000. So I'm going to go to my spreadsheet. Let me just make it smaller so you can see it here. And instead on this one, I'm going to clear off what I've done, but not clear the last one, because that's where my formula is. And I'm going to put $4,000. Oh, 4,000. Okay. And then the interest rate is 8%, which is 0.08. And then the time, it took 2 years. It was 8% per year, so I'm going to put a 2 for years. And it gives me $640 interest. I don't have to go to manually do any of it. And you could figure out any of these problems using this one formula without doing any other work. Now this one says how much did he repay, so what you'd have to do is, all right, we have $640 interest, add it to the principal, and that would give you $4,640, which would be B. So that's how you do simple interest by hand and on Google Doc. Let me know if you have any questions, but that's the gist of it.